Welcome to our October Sanchalana Teacher Mentor module. The topic chosen for this month's Sanchalana is on the elements of speaking English in a classroom 3.0. Let's have a quick recap on what we learned in our previous modules. In our previous sessions, we spoke about the three main or basic language speaking tools. The first one being vocabulary set, the second one was simple questions, and the third one was simple sentences. While discussing on vocabulary set, we spoke about how vocabulary can be built by using three major categories, meaning that if a topic is given to you, you can fill words under three major or basic categories and you will have enough words to talk about the topic. The first such category was the definition category. In this category, words that give a brief description of the topic are filled. In the second category, which is on features, words that talk about the basic features or characteristics of a topic are filled. Third, the examples category. Here, words that are examples related to a particular topic are filled.
In this module, we will concentrate more on creating simple questions. So what we will learn is the language tool to build questions, on how to build simple questions. Then we will look at the 7 basic types of question starters. Then we will see question starters for vocabulary categories of definitions, features, and examples. And finally, we will see what are open-ended and closed-ended questions. The milestones and learning outcomes that will be covered are milestone 5, animals and birds with habitats. Milestone 6, names of vehicles for grade 4 and 5. Learning outcome 6.5, prepositions for grade 6. And for grade 7, learning outcome 7.5, which deals with participates in activities like group discussions, riddles, etc. Teachers, please note, these are not the milestones and learning outcomes for this month. However, since we are at the end of our term, we will be using these milestones and learning outcomes as examples for this language tool, simple questions. A few things to remember before we start our module are some of the icon codes that you will see throughout. If you see an icon of a year, it means you have to listen to what the facilitator is saying. The next is a man with a speech bubble. Here, it means the participants or the teachers would need to talk to the mentor. And if you see 2 men with the 2 speech bubbles, it means you have to pair the teachers and make them do the activity with their partner.
Let's begin. Let's focus on the second language tool, which is on simple questions. Before we start on how to build simple questions, let's do a small activity around questions. Here is a picture. We request all of you to now come up with any question that pops in your head when you look at this picture. Remember that the questions must be with respect to the objects that you see in this picture and this picture alone, but it can be about anything and everything. You have about a minute's time for this. Is that a train coming inside the platform? Is everyone waiting for the same train? Is it about to rain? Are those stones on the tracks that I see? How many advertisement boards do you see on the divider? Do trains run on electricity? So on and so forth. Let's make it a little better now. The same picture is given to you, but now we'd like for all of you to make questions using these specific words, meaning that the questions that you'd be framing now should start with words like what, which, and when. Can you make questions like this? You have a minute's time for it. What color shirt is that man wearing? Which train is that? Where is this platform? Where are these people going? Which platform is this man standing on? Now, let's make it even better. The same question is given to you, and the same question words are also given to you for you to make questions. But here's a small twist. Your questions must be to ask about the definition of an object. Teachers, remember that it can be about any object that you see in this particular picture. And you are required to frame questions based on words like what, which, and when. A few questions that you can frame can be based on the definition of an object, and you can also frame questions based on the feature of an object. Remember, these are two categories that we have already seen in the vocabulary set. You have a minute's time to do this activity. Which part of the railway station do the trains run on? Is probably a feature question. What are the uses of a railway station? Is probably a definition question. Where can people stand on a railway station? Is again a feature-based question.
Now we have seen how we can ask questions based on a simple topic. Now, why do we ask questions? Basically, we ask questions because it helps stimulate learning about a topic. Now, what are simple questions? Now, we have seen how to ask questions using question frameworks and questions from the Kalika Chetrike. But how do we build our own questions? Come, let's see and learn how to build questions. To learn to build questions, what are some of the things we need to know to make our own questions? This is a question building. Now, step 1 is the foundation, and basic question starters is what we need. Step 2 is question starters for the vocabulary categories. And step 3 is building questions for specific answers. All these three put together can help us build questions. Now, let's look at the first step, that is basic question starters. Now, there are 7 types of question starters. What are they? Now, what are the question words? We see words like who, what, when, where, why, how, and which. Now, when do we use the question word who? We use it to ask for a person. The question word what is used to ask for information about things and actions. When is used to ask for information about time. Now, the question word where is used to ask for information about a place. We use the question word why to ask for a reason, and the question word how for a condition, quality, or manner. And finally, we use the question word which to ask for specific information. Now let's see how we can use these question words or build basic question starters using the milestone 5, animals and birds with habitats, and milestone 6, names of vehicles. For animals and birds, we'll see what are the questions that you can come up with. Who does the hyena depend on for food? What do lions eat? When does a crow fly? Where can you find a sparrow? Why does a camel drink a lot of water at once? How does a hen eat its food? Which animal has the longest neck? Now let's see how we can ask topic-specific questions. For this animal, fox. What is a fox? Where does a fox live? When does a fox sleep? Which animal does the fox hunt? Who is the fox afraid of? How does a fox find food? Why does the fox have long ears?
Now to our first Sanchalana activity. Here, the teachers are required to use question starters to ask about an auto rickshaw. You can use question starters like what, where, when, which, who, how, and why to come up with questions, but they must all be based on an auto rickshaw. You have about 2 minutes time to conduct this activity at your centers. What are the uses of an auto rickshaw? Where can we find an auto rickshaw? When does your auto come to pick you up? Which colors can you find on an auto rickshaw? Who is your auto driver? How can I go fast if I ride in an auto rickshaw? Why can only 3 people sit at the back seat of an auto rickshaw? So on and so forth. Teacher mentors, here are a few tips that you must remember while conducting this activity at your Sanchalana centers. First, remember that when you see a person with a speech bubble as your icon, it means that it is a single person response activity, meaning that the teachers at your centers must individually give you answers for this activity. But before you get those answers, here are a few steps that you need to follow as teacher mentors. First, repeat the instruction given by the presenter meaning us. Repeat the example given by us as presenters and read out the examples given in the teacher mentor script that has already been provided to you. Let's practice as to how this activity would actually be conducted on the Saturday cycle. First, when this screen is presented to you and the timer starts, we as presenters would call out the instruction. It would be something like this. Use question starters to ask about an auto rickshaw. ಈ ಥರದ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಷನ್ ಕೇಳಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಅದೇ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಹಾಗೆ ನೀವು ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸೆಂಟರ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಮುಂದೆ. ಈ ಥರದ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಬಂದು ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ರಿಪೀಟೆಡ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೇಳೋ ಉದ್ದೇಶ ಏನಂದರೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಲಿ ಮತ್ತು ಅವ್ರ ಈ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿಯನ್ನು ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಲಿ ಅಂತ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್, we as presenters might give an example. An example like, where is this auto going? Who is your auto driver? ಈ ಥರದ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ನಾವು ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ ಅದೇ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸನ್ನು ನೀವು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಮುಂದೆನೂ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಈ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸನ್ನು ಮಾತ್ರ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂತ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಿ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರೋ ಟೀಚರ್ ಮೆಂಟರ್ ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಟ್ಸನ್ನು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ಗಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾವ ಥರದ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂದರೆ, the teacher mentor script might have examples like, what is an auto rickshaw? When do you catch an auto rickshaw? ಈ ಥರದ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ನೀವು ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಪ್ರಯೋಗಿಸ್ಬೋದು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸೆಂಟರ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ.
Now comes step 2, that is question starters for definition, features and examples, which are basically the vocabulary categories. So for any topic, there are 3 categories. One is definition, then is features, and then the examples. Now let's see what kind of questions do we use for each of these categories. Now, for the definition category, we use questions like what, how, who, and where. For the features category, we use the question starters of what, which, and where. And in the examples category, we use the words like what, where, when, why, and who to begin our questions with. Now we will see how to start questions for the vocabulary category for the learning outcome 6.5, which concentrates on prepositions. Now, what is the definition of a preposition? Well, prepositions tell us where something is or when something is happening. What are the features of a preposition? The features are short words, comes before nouns, indicate location, relationship and time. And what are some of the examples of preposition? Some of the examples are on, up, down, between, along, to name a few. Now, the stage 1 is kinds of questions based on definition. Now, what is the definition of preposition? We have already seen. So, the questions that you can make with this is, what is a preposition? What tells us where something is? With the question starter, how? How do we know where something is? How do we know when something is happening? Now, the stage 2 of framing a question based on the features category. We use the question word which. Which word indicates location? Which word comes before a noun? We can also use the question word where and say, where do we use words that indicate relationship or indicate time? Moving ahead to stage 3, where we form questions based on examples of preposition. We use the question word when, and the question will be, when do we use the preposition on? We can also use what, and the question will be something like this. What does the word on tell us?
Moving on to our next Sanchalana activity. Here, the teachers must pick a question starter and ask questions about features of prepositions. The features have already been given here as a list, and question starters have also been given. Question starters like what, which, how, where, and why can be used to build or frame questions on the features of prepositions. You have 2 minutes of time to conduct this activity at your centers. What are short words that come before a noun and indicate location called? Which words in English show us the relationship Which words can be used to indicate relationship or time? So on and so forth. Teacher mentors, remember that this particular activity is also a single person response activity, meaning that the teachers at your center must individually give answers to you. And to get those correct answers from them, you need to follow the following steps. First, repeat the instruction given to you by us as the presenters. Second, repeat the example given by us as the presenters. And third, read out the examples given in the teacher mentor script. Let's practice once as to how this activity can be conducted. Once the screen is shown to you and the instruction is given out, like pick a question starter and ask questions about features of prepositions. ಈ ಥರದ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಷನ್ ಕೇಳಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ಅದೇ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಹಂಗೆ ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸೆಂಟರ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ. Next, when we give you an example telling what kind of short words come before nouns and indicate time, ಈ ಥರದ ಏನಾದರೂ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ನಾವು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಹಂಗೆ ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಹತ್ರ ನೀವು ಹೇಳಿ. ಇದಿಲ್ಲದೆ ಬೇರೆ ಥರದ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಟೀಚರ್ ಮೆಂಟರ್ ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಟಲ್ಲೂ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಅದನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ನೀವು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಮುಂದೆ ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಯಾವ ಥರದ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದರೆ, you might find certain examples in your mentor script, and this is one of them. What are short words that indicate the location? Such kind of examples from your mentor scripts can be used and repeated at the centers for teachers to understand the activity.
Now let's see how to frame a question by combining two categories. Now let us see how to frame questions by combining different categories. We can combine the features category with examples or the definition category with features or examples. Let's look at a few questions. Which preposition do you use to indicate time? Now, this is a combination of the definition category and the answer will be from the examples category. What do we call short words that tell us where something is or when something happens? Now, this is a combination of the features category and the definition category. Why is the word between called a preposition? Now, this is a combination of the features category and the examples category.
Moving on to our next Sanchalana activity. Here, the teachers are required to pick question starters and combine categories to ask questions about prepositions. We just saw how combining categories, questions can be framed. Questions needn't be from a single category. And to practice that, this activity has been given. You will be given 2 minutes of time to conduct this activity. What do we call short words that tell us where something is? Why is the word along called a preposition? Which preposition do you use to indicate relationship? Which preposition do you use to indicate location? So on and so forth. Teacher mentors, here are a few tips that you must remember while conducting this activity. This is also a single person response activity, meaning that the teachers at your center must individually give you answers or responses to this activity. But before they do so, you need to follow certain steps. First, repeat the instruction given by us as the presenters. Second, repeat the example given by us as the presenters. Third, read out the examples given in the teacher-mentor script. Let's practice once of how this activity will actually be conducted in the Saturday Sanchalana. First, when we as presenters show the screen and read out the instruction, pick question starters and combine categories to ask questions about prepositions. Teacher mentors ಆಗಿ ನೀವು ಅದೇ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಹಂಗೆ ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಮಾಡಿ. ಏನಂತ ಅಂದರೆ, ಈ ಥರದ್ದು ಕ್ಯಾಟಗರೀಸ್ ಇದ್ದರೆ ಈ ಕ್ಯಾಟಗರಿಯನ್ನು ಕಂಬೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್ ಫ್ರೇಮ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ 2 ನಿಮಿಷ ಟೈಮ್ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಕೊಡಿ. ಈ ಥರದ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಷನ್ ಹೇಳಿದನ್ನು ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ನೀವು ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. Examples like, what kind of short words tell us where something is or when something is happening? ಈ ಥರದ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಏನಾದರೂ ನಾವು ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟರ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ ಅದನ್ನು ಹಾಗೆ ನೀವು ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ನಾವು ಕೊಡುವ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸನ್ನು ಮಾತ್ರ ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂತ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಟೀಚರ್ ಮೆಂಟರ್ ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಟ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಲೈಕ್, ವೇರ್ ಡು ವಿ ಯೂಸ್ preposition ಆನ್? ಈ ಥರದ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ ನೀವು ಹಾಗೆ ಇದನ್ನು ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಮುಂದೆ ಅದು ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಸುಲಭ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Now that we have seen of how to use question starters using vocabulary categories for prepositions, let's see how we can use the same question starters for a different learning outcome. In the Kalika Chaitarike document, Learning Outcomes 7.5 and 7.5a has a requirement called group discussion. Let's see how we can use the same question starters to conduct or participate in a group discussion. For example, if the topic of our group discussion is on the market, we can use the 3 basic vocabulary categories and come up with a good discussion. The definition of a market would be a public place where people gather to buy and sell things is called a market. The features of the market would be a common place. Items are bought and sold for a price here. Items are displayed. Examples: fruit and vegetable market, fish market, farmer's market. Now, if we have to build questions based on the definition of the market, these question starters can be used. What, how, who, and where. Questions starting with what can be something like this. What is a public place where people gather to buy and sell things called? If the question starter is where, a question like, where do we find a public place where people gather to buy and sell things? Such questions based on the definition can be used just based on our question starters. And if we have to build questions based on features, we can use question starters like what, which, and where. Questions like, where do you find items bought and sold for a price? What do you call a common place where items are displayed? These kind of questions are based on the features of the market. And last but not the least, questions based on examples can be built by using question starters like what, where, when, and why. If we use the question starter where, a question like this could come up. Where have you seen a fish market? The answer to this would be an example of a fish market or a market. Now, let's see of how questions can be built based on examples of the market. Question starters like what, where, when, and why can be used to build questions on examples. If the question starter where is used, a question like this could come up. Where have you seen a fish market? And if the question starter when is used, a question like when do you go to the fruit and vegetable market can be used. And if a question starter like why is chosen, we can come up with a question like why do you? Last but not the least, let's see how questions can be built on the examples if the topic is the market. Remember that these are kind of questions that can be used during a group discussion. So, if questions are to be framed on examples, question starters like what, where, when, and why can be useful. If a question is built on the word where, a question like this could come up. Where have you seen a fish market? And if we use a question starter like when, something like this could come up. When do you go to the fruit and vegetable market? And if the question word why is used, this could be a question. Why do you go to the farmer's market? All of these questions are based on the examples category. And the same can be done for definition, features, and such other categories. And they would help us in conducting or participating a good group discussion. Now to our final Sanchalana activity. In this activity, the teachers must pick a question starter and ask their partner questions about examples of the market. If the topic is the market, then using the question starters what, where, when, and why, they would be given 2 minutes of time to come up with questions based on examples. Where is the fish market? Why do you visit only the farmer's market? Which fish market is the best in your city? When does the vegetable market open? So on and so forth. Teacher mentors, remember that these are a few tips that you need to remember before conducting this last activity. This activity, unlike the others, is a paired activity, meaning that you need to divide the teachers into pairs and conduct this activity, and then make them speak the answers or the activity questions with each other and exchange their responses. But before doing so, the teachers must be instructed clearly and properly. So, as teacher mentors, these are the instructions that you need to follow. First, repeat the instruction given by us as the presenters. Second, repeat the example given by us as the presenters. Third, divide the teachers into pairs. Fourth, read out the examples given in the teacher-mentor script. Let's practice once as to how this activity can be conducted. First, when this screen is displayed and the instruction is called out, please do repeat after us. If the instruction is pick a question starter and ask your partner questions about examples of the market, repeat the same instruction. ಈ ಥರದ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಷನ್ ನಾವು ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟರ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ ಅದನ್ನು ಹಾಗೆ ನೀವು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಮುಂದೆ ಹೇಳಿ. And when we give examples for this activity, like where is the fish market? Which farmer's market is your favorite? ಈ ಥರದ ಏನಾದರೂ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ನಾವು ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ ಅದನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಹಾಗೆ ನೀವು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ಗೆ ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಒಂದ್ಸಲ. ನಾವು ಕೊಡುವ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸನ್ನು ಮಾತ್ರ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂತ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಟೀಚರ್ ಮೆಂಟರ್ ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಟಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಯಾವ ಥರದಂದರೆ ವೇರ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಯು ಫೈಂಡ್ ಅ ಫ್ರೂಟ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್? ಈ ಥರದ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸನ್ನು ನೀವು ಟೀಚರ್ ಮೆಂಟರ್ ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಟನ್ನು ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸಿ ಅವ್ರ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಮುಂದೆ ನೀವು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಈ ಥರ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸನ್ನು ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಈ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಏನು, ಯಾಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗಿ ಒಂದು ಕ್ಲಾರಿಟಿ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. Now, if we have to frame questions but with a combination of categories, even for a group discussion on a topic like the market, that can be easily done. We just have to frame questions carefully based on both or all three categories that we pick. Examples of combination category questions are: where can you find a common place where people gather to buy and sell things? Here, the category, definition, and features has been used to come up with a question, and question starters like where has been used. If another question was to be framed with the question starter how, and it still had to be a combination of categories, something like this could be framed. How are items bought and sold for a price at a fruit and vegetable market? This is a combination question of the features and examples category. Moving on to our last Sanchalana activity. This is where teachers will be required to pick a question starter and ask their partner questions about examples of the market. Now to the last Sanchalana activity. Pick a question starter. Now to the last Sanchalana activity. Pick question starters and combine categories to ask questions to your partner about the market. Here, questions can be based on 2 or more categories. It can be on either features and examples, or definition and features, or definition and examples. You have about 2 minutes of time to conduct this activity. Where are items bought and sold for a price in a fish market? Which kind of farmer's market do people go to directly buy and sell from the farmers? So on and so forth. Teacher mentors, please remember that this is a paired activity, meaning that you need to conduct this activity by first dividing the teachers into pairs and asking them to speak out the answers to their partners. But before they do that, you need to follow these steps, which are: repeat the instruction given by us as the presenters. Repeat the example given by us as the presenters. Do divide the teachers into pairs. And read out the examples given in the teacher-mentor script. Let's practice once of how this activity can be conducted. Now to the last Sanchalana activity. Here, pick question starters and combine categories to ask questions to your partner about the market. Here, the teachers must frame questions based on 2 or more categories. The topic must be on the market, and any of the category can be used, but remember that it must be more than one. 2 minutes of time will be given for this activity to be conducted. Questions like: where is a common place where fruits and vegetables are bought and sold for a price? Which market do farmers come directly to display their produce, so on and so forth. Teacher mentors, here are a few tips that you must remember while conducting this activity. Remember that this is also a paired activity and that you must divide your teachers into pairs and make sure that they are exchanging their answers with each other by speaking with each other. But before they do that, you need to follow these particular steps. First, repeat the instruction given by the presenter. Second, repeat the example given by the presenter. Third, divide the teachers into pairs and also read out the examples given in the teacher-mentor script. Let's practice once. Once the screen is displayed and the instruction is given to you, please repeat after the presenters. Pick question starters and combine categories to ask questions to your partner about the market. ಈ ಥರದ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಅಥವಾ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಷನ್ ನಾವು ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ ಅದನ್ನು ಹಾಗೆ ನೀವು ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡಿಸಿ ಈ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಯಾಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡಿಸಿ ಈ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎರಡಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಕ್ಯಾಟಗರಿಯನ್ನು ಪ್ರಯೋಗಿಸಿ ಒಂದು ಕ್ವೆಶನನ್ನು ಅವ್ರು ಫ್ರೇಮ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂತ ನಾವು ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ ಅದನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ನೀವು ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. Examples can be given like, where is a common place where fish is generally sold or bought? ಈ ಥರದ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ನಾವು ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ ಅದನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ನೀವು ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ನಾವು ಕೊಡುವ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸನ್ನು ಮಾತ್ರ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂತೇನಿಲ್ಲ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಟೀಚರ್ ಮೆಂಟರ್ ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಟ್ಸಲ್ಲಿರೋ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ನೀವು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಲೈಕ್, how are items displayed in a fruit and vegetable market? These kind of examples can come to your use from your teacher-mentor scripts.
Now coming to step 3 of building questions for specific answers. Here let us look at question starters for vocabulary categories. Now what are the two types of questions we will see? One is an open-ended question. The second is a closed-ended questions. Now let us see what do we mean by open-ended questions. Now questions that cannot be answered with a simple yes or no response. There are some questions which allow students to give a free-form answers, as in they can answer in a full sentence. And then we have answers based on the complete knowledge, feeling and understanding of a topic. For example, the definition of the topic. Now, what are the question starters that we can use to frame an open-ended question? Let's look at that. What questions? Ask about information regarding a topic. Why questions? Now, these are asked for reasons related to a topic. And how questions? Asking for the condition or quality or the method. Let us look at an example for each of these. What is a vehicle? Now here, the definition of a vehicle is any machine that transports people, animals or things is called a vehicle. A vehicle can be found on land, water or air. Or a vehicle can be fast or slow. The next question starter is why. Why do we use a verb? Now to answer this, we can't just say yes or no or a one-word answer. The answer should be, we use a verb to indicate an action performed by a person, animal or object. Then is how. How do you write a newspaper headline? The perfect headline is short, accurate, and attention grabbing. The news headline should be clear and specific, using only a few words. Now let us look at what closed-ended questions are. Now, questions that could be answered with a one-word answer or a simple yes or no. These kind of questions have short and direct answers. They can be single or groups of words or short sentences or phrases. They can also have answers based on specific aspects of the subject. For example, features or examples related to the topic. Now let us look at what are the question starters we can use to frame closed-ended questions. We have the question word which asks about specific information. Where questions asks about a location or asking for the location of something. When question asks for the time. An example of each of these question starter. Which vehicle can travel on water? This is just a one-word answer. A ship. Where? Now, where can we find a headline? In a newspaper, in advertisements, or on TV channels. When do we use a verb? Now we use a verb to describe what the subject is doing. Now let us see the difference between an open-ended question and a closed-ended question. Now open-ended questions can be given more marks as they require students to answer in full sentences, recalling complete knowledge about a topic they have just learnt. These kind of questions can be given for either 4, 5 or 10 marks. On the other hand, closed-ended questions can be given few marks as they require students to give specific answers using single or groups of words, phrases or short sentences. You can give 1, 2 or 3 marks. Let's look at a few examples of these kind of questions. What is your experience of visiting a market? Now, this is an open-ended question because it cannot be answered in just one word. We have to give more marks as they require students to answer in a full sentence, recalling complete knowledge about the topic. Similarly, for the following questions. Why do people go to the railway station? How did Toto Cat feel when he found the cap? Remember, these can be given for 4, 5 or 10 marks based on your question paper. Now, on the other hand, closed-ended questions like, where was the cap? When do we know a train is about to leave? Which market do you visit when you want to buy fruits? Now, all these closed-ended questions can be answered with just giving a specific answer. We can use just single or group of words or phrases or just a short sentence. And these questions can carry 1, 2 or 3 marks.
Now, to the end of the module, here is a list of post-webinar activities that you can conduct after having learned extensively on question building. These activities will help the teachers to reflect on their learnings during the module and also practice them. The first activity is to build questions for the given topic. And it is not any question, but the teacher must put a little bit of effort and think what kind of questions he or she will be asking their learners at the beginning of the class, during the classroom transaction, and after the topic is taught. And the second post-webinar activity could be something like this. Once a topic is given, teachers can be asked to build both open-ended and close-ended questions for the same topic, and a discussion of what kind of question starters or question words is appropriate for open-ended and appropriate for close-ended can be discussed. For example, if the topic for activity 1 is ocean, questions like these could be asked at the beginning of the class. What do you see? What is this? Where is this? Give a few examples of this. And during the classroom transaction, questions like, what are the uses of the ocean? What are the features of the ocean? Such kind of questions can be used. And after the topic is taught, questions like, how are oceans formed? What if oceans did not exist? These kind of questions can be asked. Remember that at the beginning of the classroom transaction or before the classroom transaction, questions must not be very tough or too detailed. During the classroom transaction, they must help the learners think better. And after the topic is taught, the questions can be based on what is already taught in class. The second activity is something like this. If a topic like post office is given, teachers can come up with open-ended and closed-ended questions. And question starters like what, why, and how can be used for open-ended questions, and question starters like which, where, and when can be used for closed-ended questions. This brings us to the end of our module for today. Thank you very much, teachers, and hope you have a wonderful learning experience while conducting these activities.